Okay, so testimony time. I actually looked first to see if I already had a video on my testimony, which I thought I did, but apparently I do not. So this actually is going to be twofold for the Bible study group I'm doing this for, as well as just to have in general. We'll go back to 1998. I was 11 years old, and I will tell you basically how I got saved. I had already been in church my entire life, so that was a given. My grandfather, he was a pastor and a preacher for 44 years. That was pretty much the span of his ministry. And he was with what was then called the North Carolina Yearly Meeting of Friends, which basically is nothing more than the Quaker part of North Carolina. It was the Quakers. If you haven't studied the Quakers, it's definitely worth studying. They have a very rich history. They helped with the abolition of slavery. If you go into High Point, there's a place called the Mendenhall Homestead or Home Place. That was a group of Quakers. The Mendenhalls were Quakers, and they owned that plantation at the time. They also used it as a cover, and it was, I think, don't quote me on this, but it was also a part of the Underground Railroad. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, rich history. Anyway, so that was kind of the dominant force was my grandparents, but I had been involved with Pentecostals, Assembly of God, pretty much anywhere my mom went. So fast forward to age 11. By this time, I had started attending Spring Garden Friends meeting with my grandparents. That church is no longer in existence, but I started attending with them, and it was probably about a year or so, probably about a year prior to me getting saved or giving my life to Christ. And the way this happened, it was, I think, July 3rd or June 3rd of 1998. It was one of the two. I'm pretty sure it was July 3rd, only because Father's Day had already passed. And I was in Dollar General, and Father's Day was coming up, so I wanted to get my grandfather something for Father's Day. So I saw this holographic picture of the Last Supper, and I'm like, oh wow, that's really neat. So, and yeah, I mean, I'm 11 years old, I ain't got no money, so I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, he bought it himself, and I said I was getting it for myself and ended up giving it to him for Father's Day. So I do not know where this is at now. I know I still have it, but I gotta find it. The frame broke, all that fun stuff, but I've got to find it and frame it and put it on my wall, because it's a pivotal piece of me getting saved. So at the time, it's whatever time at night, probably 11 o'clock or so. At the time, I did not have my bedroom set up. That's a long story in itself. We won't go there. But I was sleeping on the couch. And while I was sleeping on the couch, I had basically put this photo on the wall, and I'm staring right at it. And for whatever reason, a spirit of conviction fell on me. I just always took it. That was, I guess, the first time the spirit dealt with me. And I just started feeling massively under conviction. So the dynamics were me, my mom, my grandparents. We all lived under the same roof over on West Florida Street. If you're familiar with Greensboro, you know about West Florida Street. I was about 3 blocks away from the projects, basically. Grove Street, all that, Glenwood. So anyhow, I start feeling conviction, whatever. It's almost midnight, if not past midnight. So I go into my grandfather's or my grandparents' bedroom, and I nudged my grandfather and I said, "Hey, could you come in the living room for a little bit?" And so I asked him into the living room, and the crazy thing about this is I am probably, at least to my knowledge, I'm probably the last person he led to Christ, because he passed away a year later. And if he did lead anybody else, I don't know about it. But I basically said, "Hey, like, I can only imagine how it made him feel." But I basically asked him and said, "So could you, how do we do this? Could you help lead me to Christ?" And so we're in the living room. We bow, or I bow anyway, and he leads me to Christ. And he goes back to bed, and I just start crying like a baby, and trying to be all tough and everything. I'm like, sucking it up, but as soon as he leaves the room, I am crying like a baby. And and it was just, it's crazy, because that's basically how I got saved, in the living room at 1208 West Florida Street, at about 12:15 at night, I think, if I remember correctly. And my grandfather led me to Christ. And so that's how I got saved. Aside from that, testimony wise, like I said, I've pretty much been in church or in and out of church my entire life. This spreads over multiple denominations, non-denominations, multiple different routes, and so forth. So I've been pretty heavily involved. I've been in ministry pretty much, definitely since I was 18. I've definitely been in ministry since I was 18, but arguments could be made that I was in ministry as early as when I got saved, if not even before I got saved. Don't ask me how that happened, but I mean, I was like 10 years old, semi-evangelizing, before I even really became a Christian, which is crazy. Even down to preaching. Like, I always, it's crazy, because I always thought I would either be a preacher or an actor or something like that. Maybe a singer. And I mean, I can do all of which. I've done acting, I can sing, and yes, I have preached. I did my first public sermon when I was, let's see, I think I was 18, 19. I might have been 20. Actually, I might have been 19 or 20. I think I was 20, or somewhere in there, when I did my first public sermon. And a lot of my sermons are available on YouTube. They're still there. My first sermon is definitely on YouTube. I listen to it and laugh at it from time to time. It wasn't bad. I mean, it's just definitely, I grew a lot. I am 39 now, so to put that in perspective, my theology has changed a lot over the years. It's been in multiple ways, I guess. One of the biggest things early on I kind of came up with, based off of my convictions, was that I don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. So I'm very, very cautious with not my teaching of hell, but more so my, you're going to hell, and bada 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 and all that, I've seen a lot of that, experienced a lot of that, and I feel like it's above my pay grade as a minister. So, currently, at this moment, I am not in a church, but I am somewhat involved in church. More so Bible studies. Ironically, I've been involved at a place called High Point Friends in High Point, more so in their Bible studies than their church. Their Bible studies are golden, so I love it. As far as the actual church service goes, it starts at 10. I live in Greensboro, so I have to get up a little bit earlier to get there. So sometimes I opt to not, because tired. Work, especially working where I work, it definitely takes a toll at times and leaves me pretty much in recovery when I'm off work. So, I'm trying to think of what else about my testimony. I've had my own ministry, kind of off and on. I still got it technically. Do I? And I say my own ministry by title, Operation Reach Out Ministries International. I have had that. I even attempted to do Matthew Scarborough Enterprises and use that as an umbrella for the ministry and other things too. I've tried a few angles with that. Not to say it never took off. It did have traction at times. I used to have a magazine, which honestly, as time went on, I just didn't have time to, or money or resources to continue the magazine. It's hard to write that much and come up with that much material and print it and send it and do all this other jazz. So I haven't done it. Oh man, it's probably been about, I think the last one was it was pre-pandemic, so about 7 years ago. But I did enjoy the magazine and it did get good response. Since then, I've made more videos, things like that. I have been involved in several churches over the years and ministries. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I could go down the list if you want me to, but from 2010 to 2015, I was married, and we did a lot of ministry together. She's still one of my best friends. Her name's Ashanti. I think most of you, if you follow me, you're probably aware of who she is. She's still one of my best friends. Recently, she was diagnosed with a type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma called cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, which is a Sézary syndrome, which attacks your lymphatic, your blood, and your skin. So she's doing well. Considering the diagnosis, she's doing well, I'll say. And but in all that time and kind of being there for, especially here and there with that, one of the jokes that I'll make when people are like, "Oh, your ex-husband / best friend." Well, this is crazy. I'll say something along the lines of, "It's so much better to have a Lucy Desi thing versus an Ike and Tina thing." So, and Lucy and Desi were probably headed there. They were not very friendly there when they were married, but when they were divorced, they were very close. They were very good friends, and supported each other very much, and loved each other very much, no doubt. But I guess testimony-wise, since the divorce, I've probably dated maybe one or two people. I've talked to more people than I've dated. I haven't. It's not that I wouldn't date. It's just I'm very picky. There's only probably a select few people that I would even consider. Most of the time, they would fall into the category of not available or not interested. So that's kind of how that has been. I guess we could start a dialogue about my testimony too. So I'll say that if you have questions about my ministry, about my life, my conversion, my journey after I got saved, because that's the other thing, I got saved at 11. So let's just say this, because you got to go through the stuff to grow as a man, as a woman, that type of thing. For me, I had to grow as a man. So, and I had to go through adolescence and all that other fun stuff. So I really actually did more dirt after I got saved. And then I felt strongly the call to ministry when I was probably 18. 15. It was already weighing on me a little bit, but by 18, I was really I felt very called into ministry specifically. and I tried to fight it, and it always kept winning out. But the call to ministry, I will say, between the time I got saved and the call to ministry, I did a lot. But it got even worse after I got called into ministry. If I went down my list of sins, I guess you could say, you'd be like, oh my gosh, and then you know how people are. They're like, well, you call yourself a Christian, or you call yourself a preacher, and blah, 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 And yeah, I do. And I think that's why we have grace, because obviously if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for God's forgiveness, if it wasn't for the cross, if it wasn't for the blood, that type of thing, like, honestly, yeah, I would probably be a lost cause. But everybody's got a story. I guess that's pretty much mine. I'm going to leave it at that. If you have questions about it, let me know. And, yeah, that's it.